Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can we please have some silence, please? Thank you. Right. Now, let me just remind you, first of all, that this is not a panel discussion and this is not a lecture. This is actually a workshop. That's what it's meant to be. And what does it mean? Having a workshop means that it's not only me who is talking, it's actually all of you and us. So we have to talk. This is a dialogue, okay? It's not a monologue that only I'm saying something and you are just listening. I want you to talk as well. I want the audience to engage and to make sure that there are questions, there are comments, there is criticism, there is challenge, whatever you want to do. But we have to keep it within the confines of the discussion of the topic, and we have to keep also the time as well, right? Because we have limited time. So with this, I will move to the presentation. This is about AAOIFI's Code of Ethics for Islamic Finance Professionals. First of all, I just hope that everyone knows AAOIFI. If someone doesn't, please raise your hand and I will explain to you what it is. It stands for Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. This is the standard setting body for the industry that issues Sharia, accounting, auditing, governance, and ethics standards for Islamic financial institutions and practitioners. Now, before we move on, and before I start the discussion itself, I just want to share a little bit of my background with you. Why this is important, that you understand that what I'm saying, although it's about AAOIFI's Code of Ethics, but it actually, entails and it involves a lot of personal, experience, right? So over the last 20 years, I have been in Islamic finance industry with, very intense engagement at different levels, involved in setting up, new financial institutions, Islamic financial institutions, and many other things, under the banner of IFAS, Islamic Finance Advisory Services. We have done actually a lot of regulations, for different countries, and we do strategic roadmaps also for the governments, etc., always for Islamic finance. So we just do Islamic finance. My other venture has been actually, it was two of the ventures are these two, Islamic fintech companies that we have also initiated, and they were mentioned by Dr. Melih Turan this morning. So I have some exposure on the technology side as well, so 20 years of very intensive industry hands-on experience. And then finally is, my involvement over the last 9 years as a member of the board of AAOIFI's Governance and Ethics, board. So for the last 9 years, I have been involved in standard developing, setting in the stakeholder engagement, with the industry and so on. And, that has given us, alhamdulillah, a very unique exposure and unique sort of, insight into, what's happening in the industry, the real challenges on a daily basis. So for the last 5 years, I have been actually chairing the board as well. And, we have issued multiple, standards, alhamdulillah, that we are very proud of, that are helping the industry grow in the right direction with the true spirit of, Sharia. And one of those things that are actually we are very proud of is this code of ethics, right? So today's discussion is about the code of ethics that AAOIFI issued. I think it was about, 2 or 3 years ago. So today, there are 4 parts of, my discussion. So first one is ethics and the financial industry. Then the conceptual framework of AAOIFI's, code of ethics. Then an example of a violation of ethics. And then I have 2 case studies as well for you. Now this will very much depend on how the discussion goes. If we have time, we will do the case studies. If we don't, then we'll have to skip them. So let's start with ethics and the financial industry. First question to the audience. Do you believe that finance industry as a general, not Islamic finance per se, but finance industry, does it actually need some ethics? It does. Thank you. Any example that you may recall where, a breach of ethics may have led, to some issues. Can anybody recall any event?
The contracts and how they are written, most of the times they're written in ways where the consumer doesn't understand. And there's so many things that are against his will.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, this is, a very good example of micro level. Any macro level event that you may recall has happened because of a breach of ethics? Fintech exchange, yeah, financial exchange, meltdown, yeah, okay. Right. Okay, good. So we have a few examples. Now, it's not me who is telling this, it's actually the US government. What you see on the screen is an extract of the report issued by, the financial, crisis inquiry. I'm sure that each one of you remembers there was a financial meltdown at global scale in 2008, right? You remember that? So many things happening, Lehman Brothers going down, many other investment banks, the banks who were considered to be too big to fail, they failed, right? And that caused a complete havoc to the world's economic system. What caused that? What was the cause? Securitization, okay. Shorting, okay, good. Yes, please. Greed, good. Okay, yes. Mortgage defaults, thank you. Why, so if you remember, I know it's a bit old now, 15 years ago, but I think, we still remember some of those terms that were used. Subprime, can somebody, recall this term used, subprime mortgages? Right? What were those subprime mortgages? That was, the financing or, issuing, home loans to people who were actually not able to afford that, right? And why did it happen? Because there were schemes in the market where, people were given the opportunity, the salespeople, right? If you sell this, you will get this much and that, and so on and so forth. And I remember perfectly. In that time, I used to live in the UK, and the market was structured in a way that, in order to secure a mortgage, all you need is actually two things. Your ID card, there's no ID card in the UK, so you have a copy of your passport or your driving license, your identification, and a simple handwritten undertaking, attestation. It was called actually self-attested mortgage, right? So you just attest that you have an income of £100,000 a year, or £50,000 or whatever. And on the back of these two things, this handwritten, note that you will give, no stamp, no notarization, nothing, the bank will give you a mortgage. I have seen this happening. And as a result, the bubble burst, and the whole world suffered because of that. That was actually a breach of ethics, right? So the report, the US government report is saying systematic breakdown in accountability and ethics. So it was not one person, it was actually a whole cartel of people that included, different layers of, the banking sector. It included, the ratings agencies, included even the regulators who actually failed to detect and, to remedy the situation. So there was a problem with integrity and trust in financial markets. There was erosion of responsibility and ethics. And then, the findings on borrower defaults and mortgage fraud. Has anyone seen this, actually two movies that I quote usually in this case is, Margin Call. Has anyone seen Margin Call? No? Okay, The Long Short? Yes. Okay. So I strongly recommend that you watch these two movies, right? The Margin Call and the short, the Long Short, because these two movies explain perfectly what happened in 2008, what led to that crisis, and it's actually a living example of failure of ethics and the economic issues that can be caused with those, that breach of ethics. So this is the role of ethics in the finance, and finance as a general. Now, when it comes to, Islamic finance. So, of course, we have two sides, to the industry. We have the institutions, Islamic financial institutions, and there are Islamic finance professionals. Now, this code of ethics primarily addresses, the issues related to Islamic finance professionals, not so much of institutions. So we are working on another code of ethics that will be specific for the institutions, but it's not, ready yet. So today we will talk about only the code of ethics for Islamic finance professionals. Now, what's the, the importance of ethics in Islam? Can we resume the word ethics in one word? Arabic or Turkish? Yeah, akhlaq. So akhlaq or ahlak, right? And why so? Because our role model as Muslims is our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And in his Sahih Hadith, he says, "Bu'istu li'utammama makarim al-akhlaq." So I was sent to perfect good character. So good character is actually, a requirement for us. This is not voluntary. This is not optional for us. This is not, okay, I'll do it if I want. No, this is mandatory. We have to do it because this is the direction that we have been given. And this code of ethics that we are going to talk about today actually is within, the framework of that akhlaq or, the makarim al-akhlaq that the Prophet ﷺ has left for us forever. Okay? Now, as I said, this code of ethics is, exclusively for Islamic finance professionals. But this is not the only code of ethics in the market, right? There are other code of ethics as well. For example, we have this code of ethics, for, the accountants and auditors. If there are any accountants and auditors in the, in the hall, you will know what I mean. And there is also the CFA Institute, code of ethics for, CFA professionals, right? So there are codes of, ethics already existing in the market, but the problem is that these code of ethics, they try to address some of the general issues that will happen in the professional, life of, a finance professional, but they completely miss the point of akhlaq, right? So some of the requirements that apply to Muslims or anyone working with the Muslims actually are not included in those code of ethics. So this is why we were required to bring a specific code of ethics that actually complements, the others that are already in the market and help Muslim professionals do the right thing. Now, this code of ethics, by the way, this is available freely online on AAOIFI website, so you can download it and you can read it and you can implement it as well. So it's divided into three parts. So first part is the conceptual framework, right? This is to help understand the reader and the finance professional, Islamic finance professional, to conceptualize the idea of ethics. So what is it and why is it important, right? Then the second one is actually very interesting and very important, and that's, a long list of illustrative violations. So we have identified, we have given cases of 92 violations classified in 14 different categories, right? That in your professional life, what can happen if you work for an Islamic financial institution or you work even as an independent professional, what are the things that you need to consider, the key areas, and what are the probabilities or the risk areas for you that may actually happen, and it may lead to violation of the ethical code of Islam or akhlaq. And the third one is the illustrative ideals. So again, as I said, this is illustrative. This is not 100% exhaustive, but we have tried actually to be as comprehensive as possible. And what we did was that we have actually synthesized everything into a list of what we call ideals. Ideal means that, this is what we shall be doing, or this is what we shall be aiming to do at least, right? And this is classified in 7 categories. So let's, look at the conceptual framework. So the ethical paradigm is, the question starts, what is ethics? What is akhlaq? what do we do, from where we start? So, I'm glad actually that we had this discussion in the morning as well. And as, Professor Dr. Munzar Kahaf, he mentioned something very vocally, and that was, the two concepts of adl, justice, or adalet as we say in Turkish, and ihsan, right? Achieving excellence. Now, what is the difference between both? I think he has already, shed enough light on this, but I will just recap everything. Adl is the justice. That is the minimum that is required. Less than justice, less than adl, we cannot survive. We as Muslims, we cannot survive. This is not acceptable for us. However, our aim is not to get to the minimal and to just get justice. Our aim shall be to achieve ihsan, which is above adl, which is above justice. Meaning that if I have, if Brother Hatim has a right over me, I give him his right. But by giving him his right fully, I'm just doing adalat, just doing adl, right? Justice, I'm not doing any ihsan. But if I give him his right, and I give him something more on top of that, that is ihsan, right? So while we have to observe, the minimum observation is adl, less than that is not acceptable, we have to aim to achieve ihsan, excellence. So this is ethics for us in our definition. Now, let me put it on a graph, right? So what I'm showing you here, this is very simple. So there are two axes, right? X and Y. And what you see on top of, the x-axis, the y-axis is actually the area of ihsan and the area of adl, right? So this line that you see in the middle, the x-axis, is actually justice, is adl. And I said less than justice, less than adl is just not acceptable. And you see why. The box in red, because this is zulm, what we call zulm, right? We have it in Turkish as well, we have the same word in Arabic as well, zulm. Zulm is something when we are being cruel to someone, when we are refusing or withholding someone else's right? This is exactly, the continuation of the discussion that we had this morning, given by, Dr. Munzar Kahaf. So the minimum required, from us as Muslims, and especially as Islamic finance professional, is that we have to observe, we have to stick to the line of justice, to the line of adl. Less than that is not acceptable. That is not good for us as humans, that is not good for us as Muslims or as professionals. So we have to remain on the line of adl and always push us actually going above to the area of ihsan. And then of course, ihsan is something, that is again very subjective and it doesn't have any limits, right? So you can be, you can do as much ihsan as you want. But even having a little bit over, adl will be actually very, very good. And this is something that will, if we have this approach in our life, it will actually change the quality of life of everyone around us. Not only us, but everyone around us, right? Now, as I said, we have to stick to the minimal, which is, following the line of justice. But what does it mean? So we have, so I told you there are three parts of the, what you call the code of ethics. So the area of, zulm is actually covered in part, B that I said, which is violation. So you will have examples of zulm, right? So what are the violations? What will actually take you below the line of justice? And it will also give you the ideals, whereas part C, which is, how do you go to the upper level of ihsan. Okay, also important to note that current actions, they influence future actions. So what you do today will actually have an impact, will have a knock-on effect on what you do tomorrow and day after. So that's why it's, very important that if something happens, and for any reason, if you ever find yourself actually, going down on the curve, meaning, lower than the line of justice, you must make sure that you go back to the line of justice as soon as possible, Now, the line of adl, what that line of justice will be, this can be, again, very, very individual, right? This is not about, one line for everyone. It may be different, for different people. Can anyone tell me why, the line of justice will be different for different people? Come on, this is a test of, how many people are awake. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It won't be adil if you give him the same, if you give both the same stipend, or give them a monthly stipends. For example, if you give your eldest son a 20 lira and a 6-year-old another 20 lira, the 6-year-old doesn't need a 20 lira for his daily, let's say, life or needs.
Correct.
So that's not adl.
Yeah.
So the adl will differ now on the age or
Yes.
different. With different
It's very
people, different
contextual.
perspectives.
Thank you. Any other answer? Yes?
Yes, I think a factor that makes the graph different for people would be the difference in personal attributes. I think there's a hadith, as I remember, when the Prophet said, فِيكَ خِصْلَتَانِ يُحِبُّهُمَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. He clarified to the companion that these are natural characteristics for you personally, as in other contexts. He had told another companion, إِنَّكَ إِمْرٌ ضَعِيفٌ. So the ability, the personal capability would affect the ideal situation, and it gives limits to what one could do. So sure. This might be
Thank you.
An answer.
Yes, please.
The point here that when someone's doing something bad to another one, even if I punish the one who started the zulm, okay, I punish him only maybe physically or something one by one, but I didn't pay for the psychological effect that I did firstly. So the absolute justice is only in the akhirah, because Allah can do the same in psychological something and can let the other one pay in hasanat or sayyat or something like that, instead of the psychological side and any other casualties that not included. If this one who has the zulm is sown by his children, how you can pay for my children?
Yeah.
So that is the point. So the absolute justice is only in akhirah. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate there is a lot of excitement, but probably we have to move on. This is very good discussion, and I wish we can continue, but we have to move on as well. Now, two things are also, very important for consideration here. It's not only, whatever has been explained, but it's also the context, the circumstances, because the circumstances may be different from one person to the other, one case to the other as well, right? One institution to the other. And the most important thing is that in a professional world, the responsibility, the role actually entails, certain types of, circumstances. Certain responsibilities will come with inherent, attributes, and those attributes will have an effect on the line of justice, for each person. For example, the CEO of an institution has a much, higher line of, justice, if you want, compared to, someone, working as a cashier, for example, right? So each one of them they have, but their responsibility, the role is different. Similarly, if I give you an example of the bank, like for example, internal auditor, their responsibility is different, their role is different. The investment manager has a different role, and so on and so forth. So each one has their own role, their own responsibilities, and the line of justice will be determined according to that role and, the circumstances that, that responsibility carries. Okay. So now, some of the key points of, this adl and ihsan. So we have to go into a little bit more detail now. So what does it mean? So this equation that I showed you, this adl, ihsan, zulm, and all that, what does it actually mean, in real terms? Yes, it's a very good concept, but how does it translate into the real world? And this is where, the professional responsibilities, they kick in. For example, what you see on the screen here is having the right intention, having the niyyah, or the niyat has to be correct, okay? And the second thing is the right mindset as well. It's not only the niyat, okay? We have to have the right mindset as well. The mindset shall be able to comprehend, to remember, and to, enforce, the niyat, and transform it, translate it into the actions. This is very important. The second thing is also doing the right thing. Now, we are always, in our daily life, just simple individuals, no professionals. We are, facing this, situation where, do I do this or do I do that, right? A very simple example. I'm driving. The red light is, I know that it's becoming red. So it becomes, orange. I know that it's becoming red. In a split second, I have to make this decision. Do I accelerate and pass, or shall I stop and wait until it becomes green? This is, sorry?
You should run faster.
Yeah. So this is, an example of that. Doing the right thing. What is right? Now, the right thing in my case will be what? I rush. I think, yeah, Sheikh, it's only like 2 months that you are in Istanbul and you are talking like you have been living here for 2 years. Okay. So let's take this as an example. If the red light is coming on, what shall I do? What's the right thing to do here? Stop. Okay. No, this is very important. It actually happened to me. It happened to me here in Istanbul. I was, approaching a traffic light. It's becoming red. I wanted to stop, and suddenly there is this fire engine behind me who's, just making this noise, the siren, and they want to pass. Can I stop now? No. The right thing at that time is to override, the red light and to pass. So what I did, I passed, and there was a turning immediate left, so I turned left so that they can go through. And to my surprise, the engine comes behind me, and the siren again. Oh, okay, sorry. So then I turned again to the right, and they come back. I say, Ya Allah, what do you want me to do? So in the end, they were actually trying to make a U-turn. This is what they were trying to do. The point I'm making is, on the surface, it looks like the right thing to do is actually to stop, wait for the green signal. In normal circumstances, yes, right? But in some circumstances, which will be exception, it doesn't happen every day, but in some circumstances, that may not be the right thing. So what we need to do as Islamic finance professional is to understand what is the right thing to do at that time, right? And then not only understand and make the right decision, but doing the right thing. And then doing the right thing in the right manner as well. I will continue with my example. If by, turning left and then left again and then left again 3 times, I give way to the, the fire engine to make a U-turn, but in that, I smash, a motorcycle, who was parked, on the side, or I hit someone else, or God forbid, I cause harm or injury to someone else. I'm doing the right thing, but I'm doing it in the wrong manner, right? It has consequences. So, again, part of, the ethics is actually doing the right thing, having the right niyat, having the right mindset, making the right decision of doing the right thing, and doing it in the right manner as well. And then, the last one is engaging with others positively, right? So, whatever happens, we have to engage with others positively. Negativity is not good. It's never good, actually. I'll go into more details. So, the right, the first one, having the right intention and the right mindset. I'm also giving you references exact to the text of the paragraphs, in the Code of Ethics. When you have time, you can read them. Is right intention means doing everything for the sake of Allah the Almighty, with the objective to gain His pleasure and reward, and to avoid His wrath and punishment. Okay? So this is the niyyah. And then the right mindset is being positive and hopeful of Allah Almighty's will and decree concerning one's life. So this is actually, although you will be thinking probably that I started with code of ethics, but now I'm actually going into Iman and, into all those things. But brothers and sisters, this is it. This is Islam. This is our deen. We cannot, and I have had the opportunity, alhamdulillah, to talk to and to present to a lot of people around the world, including many, many non-Muslims as well. In many non-Muslim countries, sometimes very senior government officials, decision makers, etc. And I tell them, the challenge that we have is actually we cannot de-associate, we cannot de-link our religious practices from our daily life. Because their concept is, you go to the church on Sunday, you do your mass, and that's it, you are done. You come out, you do whatever you want. We cannot do that. We have every single minute, every single second of our life is actually dictated by our deen, right? Our behavior, our thinking, our intentions, our actions, the way we speak, the way we behave with other people, the way, we conduct our life, in our professional life, in our workplace, at our, home, wherever, we have to do that. And what is that dictation? That dictation is purely, this is what Allah wants from me, and this is what Allah does not want from me. It's just simple as that. Only two categories we have to always think about: what is that Allah wants and what is that He doesn't want. And we have to have the iman and the trust in the faith, as I mentioned this morning, that if we do this, then inshallah there will be reward, and my action, my intentions will be accepted. And if I don't do that, then there may be a punishment. Okay? Now, doing the right thing is doing all that is sanctioned to be good, virtuous, and ideal by Sharia, but also, very important, the law of land. Let me remind you, and there are lawyers sitting, in the hall, that the law of land actually is part of Sharia. It has a place in Sharia. So unless the law of land is not contradicting with Sharia, right? It is actually obligatory upon us to follow the law of land, unless it actually dictates otherwise. So anything that is against the Sharia, breaches the Sharia, shall not be accepted and shall not be adhered to. But as far as it is for something good, then the law of land is also important for us, and we need to follow that. Okay? Then, doing the right thing in the right manner. So three things here are important. It has been actually broken down into three layers now. First one is proficiency. So achieve absolute mastery in your field of expertise. So whatever you do, whether you are a banker, whether you are an insurer, whether you are an economist, whether you are a lawyer, whether you are a market trader, whether you are, whatever, we always need to aim, to achieve the excellence, right? I actually read once, I think it was a saying by one of, the old, Turkish scholars in the, the Ottoman times, that never ever do anything, never ever, produce anything to which you don't want to put your name on. I think this is very deep philosophy. If you if you do something, you are putting your name on it, make sure that, that thing, the product, the service, whatever you have done, is actually worthy of your name. If you respect yourself, make sure that whatever you are doing is worthy of that name. So it shall be never contrary. Never do anything that causes shame to you now or in future. And this is the proficiency. This is, the excellence, that mastery that we need in, in everything that we do in our life on a daily basis. Then also timeliness, right? Doing it in the right time and consistently as well. Now this is very important because, we may do one thing a day. Okay, I did something good, alhamdulillah. I helped someone today, for example, cross the street. But if I do it once in my lifetime, is that enough? No. I have to do it regularly, more consistently. So we have to also do good things. We have to do good things. We have to do them in a timely manner, and we have to keep doing them consistently all the time. And then engaging with, others positively is, who do you engage with? With the circle of influence. So your colleagues and co-workers, other people that are around you. It may include also clients, it may others as well. How do you engage with? Wisdom. right? What to say, when to say, and how to say, okay? And sometimes just not to say at all, right? And then, trying to become a role model all the time. And how not to engage with others is by becoming indifferent. People can do whatever they want, I don't care. This I don't care attitude is not good, because this is a denial of our responsibility. And also being, negative or, being patronizing as well at the workplace, if you want. So these are some of, the examples. Now, the next, I think point of discussion is that we said we maintain the line of adl, the line of justice, but how do we do that? So we have already defined 4 things: right intention, right mindset, doing the right thing in the right manner, engaging with others positively. This is adl and ihsan, right? Both of them. Now, what's the root of these things? Now, this is very, very important. What you see on the screen now, I think is actually probably the essence of the whole code of ethics. Now, having the right intention and the right mindset, the root of this approach is actually taqwa. Taqwa and tawakkul. And what do I mean by that? When we have the right intention and we have the right mindset, we are actually refraining ourselves. We are abstaining to do bad things. And we are, striving for doing good things. And this is only because we see that as Allah's command. So this is taqwa. Yani we are doing this because we fear Allah and we value Allah's, what shall we say, the reward or the punishment. So this is important for us. Plus, we are also having tawakkul on Allah, that He is the one and only one. So, if I do something good, and then as a result, I suffer, and it may happen, in professional, environments, then it means that probably I'm being tested. It does not mean, and it shall never mean, that somebody will be able to take my risk away. Because it's only Allah who provides. He is the sustainer. So nobody, regardless of what I do, as far as I'm doing the right thing, according to the, the divine ruling, then I'm fine, I'm protected. Nobody can harm me. And if there is a harm, then inshallah I will be rewarded for that harm as well. This is what it means, in tawakkul, taqwa and tawakkul. Then doing the right thing is, 2 things playing here, 2 attributes. That's sidq, yani truthfulness, right? And also the attribute of amanat. So we are, first of all, I have to be truthful, I have to be, transparent, and I have to, this is my duty to do the right thing. And this duty is also an amana with me. This is my duty, I have to do it. I have no other choice. This is the only thing that I can do. Then doing the right thing in the right manner. Now, this is also very important. This is what we call in Arabic quwwa, or in Turkish quwwat, right? Having the strength of doing it, right? So, for example, somebody is doing something wrong in the workplace. I come to know, I stay quiet. Why? Because, I'm afraid, because I may not have the power to do anything. But if I have the power and I still don't do it, what will be the consequence for me? Am I doing the right thing? No. And if I'm doing the wrong thing, then what's the consequence for me? I am violating akhlaq, right? I'm going against, the concept of akhlaq. So having the quwwat, having, the authority to do that and doing it are both important. And then also engaging with others positively. This is part of what we call in Arabic, tawasi bil haqq, yani, promoting the right thing. And this is by engaging positively with other people, keeping a good relationship, and, helping them also making their, decisions in the right way. And these are our ethical virtues. So, any questions or comments so far? It feels like I've been talking forever, and no engagement from the audience. So maybe I'll take 1 or 2 questions or comments so far if you have. No questions, very good. So it means that most of the audience is resting. It's okay. Right. Now the million-dollar question is, how do you respond to some of the most common or routine ethical issues at the workplace? Can anyone give me an example of, an ethical, issue or dilemma at the workplace? Whatever professional environment you work in. Can somebody think of anything? Yes, please. Yes?
في معاملة المدير للشخص الذي مثلا الذي عمل عنده 3 أعوام غير معاملة الشخص الذي أتى قبل 2 أو 3 أشهر. هذه تعتبر نوعا ما عدم عدالة أو طريقة معاملة يمكن.
طبعا شكرا. So I hope that it has been translated for most of the people. Okay, any other example? Right. Yes, please.
HR, especially in payroll. So in some cases, for example, for some person that I know that they should have owed or take money for that specific things, but for the rule of, or for the role of the company that I shouldn't, or they shouldn't have this money. So in some cases, yeah, I know that if I fight for that, that may harm me, but I know that this is his right. He should be compensated for that thing. So whatever I'm doing or whatever I'm gonna face after fighting, that thing that I should stick to ethics and should stick to moral, whatever what is gonna happen after that. So yeah.
Thank you. Very relevant. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. So let's see that these the ethic the protocols that we saw, the ethical virtues, how do they translate into some of the things? So the having the right intention, the niyat and the right mindset. So this is self-accountability protocol. This is about yourself, right? I am accountable for what I think. I'm accountable for what I do, and I am liable for everything. Then also the doing the right thing. So when we said doing the right thing, so doing the right thing means that if I am not doing the right thing, that means that I'm actually avoiding responsibility. I am avoiding a liability. Then, doing the right thing in the right manner, this can be related, decision making, and, it can be also engaging with others positively. So if I do not handle the issue properly, then there may be, a violation, escalation, that may be happening, and it may cause more harm than if it was, addressed in the beginning. So when we are faced with a situation where only, one person, meaning, me, I'm aware of, my unethical action, how do I respond, right? So it can be something that, I did myself. It could be a simple thing, I incurred, or I claimed, an expense that I incurred, personally, but I added it to my business claim, right? So for example, I traveled to Dubai, and that travel was, for my own purposes, but I put the expense, the air ticket as my business claim. So the business pays for me. So nobody knows about it, right? So what do I do? Yeah.
So you can just, hide it from someone from your HR department, but you cannot hide it from Allah.
Exactly. Now this thing will come to your mind only when you have taqwa. When you have taqwa. And this is why it's important that, we understand these attributes. You will do this because only you are aware. Nobody knows, and maybe nobody will ever discover that you did not travel to Dubai for work. You actually did, for a weekend with friends. But if you have taqwa, and if you have tawakkul means that you believe that, this money, whatever, if it's 5,000 lira, for example, this money is for you. If it's written for you, Allah will send it to you, right? Let's not take it in the haram way, but wait for the halal, way to come. So this is the taqwa and the tawakkul, meaning that this is self-accountability. Nobody else comes, to you and, tells you you did wrong. This is self-accountability. And this is why it's important to have these attributes. Then, if you are doing the right thing, but those reporting to you are not, right? So for example, let's take it one layer down. You haven't done anything, but people reporting to you, they do something, right? For example, one of your teammates, they have not achieved their targets for this quarter or this year or whatever, and then they fiddle the numbers, and they say, okay, I have achieved the target. So it's not you who is doing, but someone else is doing, but they are reporting to you. What do you do? Sorry? Forgiving him. Okay, very good. It's good to be forgiving, but remember that you, as a manager, you have a fiduciary role. You have other people to, you are reporting to. So the shareholders, it could be, in a bank, it can be depositors, right? So this haq, this right is someone else's. So how can I forgive the right of someone else, of a third party who actually doesn't even know that this right is there, right? So this is where, again, we have to do the right thing. Meaning that if I don't come to know, then khalas, then there's nothing I can do. But if I came to know, and it's not me who's doing the problem, someone else is doing. But if I know and I don't report it, I don't stop it. It's not about forgiving. It's actually stopping the wrong thing to happen. Then I'm not doing the right thing. And this is avoiding the liability. So it becomes a liability on me, and what I'm saying? Okay, just forgive it. No, sorry, forget it. This is, being indifferent. I don't care. It's not me who is doing. And this is not what is required from a Muslim. It's not about, only what we are doing. It's also, we have an inherent duty of Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi al Munkar. We agree with that? So, when we see that there is something wrong happening and we do not stop it, then we are actually in violation. Okay? Then, when you need assurance that your decision is ethical, okay? So you need to report this, and this a colleague of yours is saying, what, Abe, just let it go, blah blah blah. I will fix it next quarter, so on and so forth. I'll do double shift, I'll do something. I'll get the money back and so on. So how do you make your, will you listen to him, or will you ask him, okay, I will do something, I will help you, but you return the money at least, right? So this is, again, the decision has to be right. The decision has to be ethical as well. And this is, referring to doing the right thing in the right manner. And then if you witness an unethical act by another Islamic finance professional, then, you need to also understand that how do you escalate this? How do you, report that so that you, of course, it needs to be stopped, but stopping doesn't mean that you cause more harm. As I said, for me, taking 3 tons, left to give way to the fire engine doesn't mean that I have the right actually to just bulldoze everyone on the way. So I don't do that, right? So we have to do all these things in the right way as well. So this is very important. Okay. So some of the illustrations, this code of ethics is actually very, very detailed. I'm just touching the surface here, right? So you may be bored a little bit now, but I think it's important to go at least through, the overview. So some of the violations that may happen of these ethical virtues, we have tried actually to put them into, some categories. So transaction related, right? So it can be, and it can be, in finance, it can be even just normal trade, mis-selling, misrepresentation, or insider trading, right? These are all transaction related violations of ethical virtues. If you have the insider information, then you should not trade. Similarly, mis-selling anything. Yes, this car is perfect, brother, no problem, never had an accident. When actually the car was repaired, it had an accident. This is mis-selling, Very common problem that I have seen in financial institutions is, I remember when we launched the first takaful, operator in the UK, we had this issue very, frequently, because it was a new concept. So people who understand takaful, there may be, a refund of your, contribution, takaful contribution in the end of the year, right? So the sales staff, they were trained, but then the sales staff could not understand between the difference, the subtle difference between there will be a refund or there may be a refund, okay? So they kept telling people, yes, brother, there will be a refund, inshallah. Nobody knows whether there will be a refund. It's very much contingent upon how the takaful operation goes. If the takaful pool is profitable, then yes, there may be, a refund for everyone. But if there is, the takaful pool is not in excess, then there cannot be. This was actually detected in Sharia audit, and we had to remedy this because this is a violation, right? And this is actually even, it can be penalized from a regulatory point of view as well, because we are promising something. We are saying just by change of wording, there will be a refund is different from there may be a refund, okay? So it sounds only one word, but it actually changes the whole context, right? Then in terms of culture, we have this very common issue of backbiting, this indifference, as I said, I don't care, blah, blah, or whatever, if we get the results in the end, then that's fine. How do we get the results? It doesn't matter. No, it does matter. How we get the results is also important. It's not only the end result, it's also how do we get to the end result. Then leadership management, again, this is very common, and I think a lot of people will probably have, some sort of example in their career of discrimination, abuse, or, breach of fiduciary, responsibility and duties, etc., and so on. Then between people, there can be harassment, there is slander, invasion of privacy, people, talking about others, people, meddling into other people's affairs. All this is not good, this is not good akhlaq, right? So when we talk bad about someone, when we do the ghibat, then technically, we are committing zulm. So this is below the line of justice. So we shall avoid this. And then, on the personal side, there can be, cases of disloyalty, arrogance, immodesty, etc., and so on, right? So these are a few illustrations of, how the violations can take place. Then there is this, example that we have taken actually from, some other codes, but I'm going to skip this, for the sake of time. So now, one of the very common things, probably the most common issue that we see in terms of ethics is actually conflict of interest. Can anyone define for me what will be a conflict of interest or an example of conflict of interest? Yes, please.
The way the managers of a company might serve themselves. For example, the way managers of company, high executives might serve themselves, such as CEOs and the like, the costs they might make for their own expenses, and on the other hand, the owners, for example, of that company, shareholders that would like to decrease the costs, for example.
Thank you. Yeah, the example that I gave you of subprime, mortgages in the US and elsewhere also, that's a perfect example of conflict of interest. So the salespeople, they are offered incentives to sell mortgages. So more you sell, the more commission you make. And in that quest, because there is, a relatively weaker, regulatory control over the mortgages. So what they do is that knowing that, the person is actually not, able to, financially afford that, the repayment of the mortgage, they will still approve it because it's in their interest. So there is a conflict of interest. So technically what they are doing is actually they are risking the money of the shareholder or the depositor or whatever, the provider of money and the capital provider, and they are risking it, unnecessarily and wrongly, knowing that it's not good and it will cause harm, but they still do it because they have their own interest. So this is a very common issue that, we will face on a daily basis, and it comes in different ways and forms. So if we have, so now what I'm going to do is actually, there is actually a breakdown of, this conflict of interest. So what do we do, right? If there is a conflict of interest, then how do we assess, what to do? So first of all, is this a serious conflict of interest? So it can be something very simple, very small, where we can just make a declaration and say, if I'm, for example, I have an account with a certain bank and my brother is the branch manager. If I go to that branch, then, the brother may try to help me, but, in that case, either I shall avoid going to that branch or, tell the, what shall I say, the credit approver that, my brother is a branch manager, so at least they know, right? This is not a serious conflict of interest, but sometimes it can be very serious and consequential in the case of, the example that we did. So conflict of interest, is it serious? And then, is it work-related or not? So, if it's work-related, then is it positively related or negatively related? Okay? So positively related means that, yes, it can be an issue. For example, I have a company, right? And, I have, shares in a bank, for example, or I have, a bank as a client, and I tell them, can you finance this company, right? So this is something that is a conflict of interest, but it may be positive as well, because, it doesn't mean that if it's my company, then, I must avoid at all cost. But it may be negatively as well, because the company may not be in good shape, and by influencing the credit decision, I'm actually benefiting from that. So that can be, the positive or the negative, connotation of the conflict of interest. And then, for example, it's negatively related, then it could be simple as use of, office resources. For example, my son has to, he has prepared a thesis, it's 150 pages. I don't want to print it, on the office, on the home printer, because it costs me money, or I simply don't have a printer. So what I do is, okay, just email me, I'll print it in the office. So I'm printing it in the office, 150 pages of colored, copies and stuff and so on, 2 copies each. Nobody knows, yeah. Is it okay? Is it good? No, it's not, because I'm using the office resources that are meant for business, not for me, okay? So again, we have to break it down to that level. So not being used or being used. And then also, the representation of what does it mean. So it may mean that, I can actually go to, whoever is, the decision maker, the right decision maker, and I can say, okay, this is what I need. My home printer is not working. This is required urgently. Can I print it? So they say, yes, no problem. So, okay, I can use it. But if they say, no, this is not the company policy, then, I shall not be doing it. I shall not be doing it at all. And then, also, if I can distance myself, from, this conflict of interest, as I said, in some cases, for example, and this is, by the way, it happens to me sometimes. For example, I am in, actually, let me give you the example of, AAOIFI's Governance and Ethics Board. So, we were talking about, we were actually developing the, the standard for external Sharia audit. And my firm, IFAS, actually does a lot of external Sharia audit. So I had to make this statement to the board as a member that I have this interest here, right? So when I say something, it will be purely on the basis of my experience in the field of Sharia audit. But please make sure that I will do my level best, that, indirectly, my company or the companies like my company, they do not unduly benefit from it, right? But if I do, somehow I arrange or I facilitate actually, the standard to be drafted in such a way that actually creates more work and more opportunity for my company or the companies like me, then this is a very serious case of conflict of interest, right? So how do I, interact in that case, and how do I manage this conflict of interest? Okay? And then finally, do we have the authority? And, is that authority sufficient actually, to resolve that conflict of interest and so on? So the bottom line here is that this is a sort of, continuous process that we have to keep on. whereas, this is an ongoing check for, severity of the conflict of interest. What does it mean? And, does it require a simple disclosure? Or shall I withdraw? Shall I say, okay, guys, I will not be part of this decision because it actually has a direct link with me. Okay? So if, the bank is approving a loan, or, not a loan, but a finance, to, one of the companies where I have a shareholding, and I am, the member of the bank's investment committee or, board of directors or whatever, the approving authority, then I shall withdraw myself from that credit decision. And the other members of, the body, they need to know that, I'm doing it purposely and the decision shall be taken without me. Okay? So here, I'm giving you an example of a conflict of interest in finance, right? So I'm not sure if everyone will be able to actually to read this text. It's a bit small, but this is, just an imaginary, scenario that a person is a financial advisor at a large investment firm. And then her responsibilities include providing clients, their clients, with investment advice and managing their portfolios. So what's the situation of conflict of interest? That, the person is approached by her own firm's investment banking division to recommend a new investment product to her clients. So they have developed a new investment product, and they say, okay, you propose this to the clients. This product is proprietary mutual fund developed by the wealth management, their own investment banking team. Now, what is the conflict here is that the incentives that are offered to the salesperson are actually higher. So she will earn more in terms of fees, in terms of bonuses, because the targets that she have been given are actually much more interesting and more higher, more rewarding compared to what, the other investment products. And it may not be actually in the client's best interest, right, to sell that product to them. So, this is an investment product that, for example, it has happened to me, by the way. I think I was like maybe 18, 19 years old. I used to live in Paris at that time, France. I went to, not a bank, but it was like, I don't know what to call it. It was like a small financial institution. And I wanted to buy a laptop, right? And I didn't have money, so I told them, okay, can you finance a laptop for me? They're not knowing even, how the system works. So how does it work? So they looked at me and they looked at, you are a student, you don't have any income. I said, no. Okay, so we don't, we cannot fund the, the laptop for you. We cannot give you a loan. So, okay, no problem. But what about this saving product that we have? So what saving product is that? Oh, you just save like, I don't know, maybe 100 francs. There used to be francs in those days. This is before euro. So 100 francs a month or whatever. And we will take direct debit from your account and blah, blah, blah. So being a very, young teenager, I didn't understand the implications. So I said, okay, sounds good. So, I signed the paper. Now, I went home and, I told my father, may Allah bless him. And he said, what did you do? You just signed on a riba contract. I said, really? So yes, because what you are saying is, they will draw this 100 franc, from your account, and then, it will stay there for a few years, and then they will return your money plus the interest. I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't understand. So he says, okay, now go back and cancel it. So I went back to the, to the place and told them, sorry, I made a wrong decision. I want to cancel this. And they said, well, it's too late now, you can't cancel. So what do you mean by I can't cancel? They said, yeah, this is, the clause included. You cannot cancel it for like 3 years. So can you believe this or not? That for 3 years, they kept drawing 100 francs from my account, from a student, young student who didn't understand. And instead of, I went actually to get, the funding for buying a laptop, I didn't get that. I actually ended up paying them 100 francs per month for 36 months. And then in the end, when they returned the money, I asked them, okay, what's the breakdown of, my principal and, the riba? And they said this much. And I said, okay, I'll just take this 3,600 and, you keep the riba. That's how I resolve the issue, right? I'm just giving you an example. This is mis-selling. This is because the salesperson had incentives. And this is, again, weak regulation because afterwards, they enhance the regulation. It doesn't happen a lot these days, but in those days, I'm talking about 30 plus years ago. So it happened. This is my own experience. So these are the things that can actually create real conflict of interest, and this is not good. So also, there is pressure, sales pressure also on the sales, person here. So the potential consequences is that, how does this, this person, Salma, she resolves that she might recommend, this new product, fund owners to the clients, but, when it's actually not really in their best interest, as in my case. So, she shall not actually cede, to, or give up, to that pressure. And, okay, because I have a gain here, by signing up this youngster, for this saving product, which is completely inadequate for him. He doesn't even know anything about it. You just sign him up and, I'll get, a commission of 300. It shouldn't be happening. So it's actually the person's responsibility to make sure that they refuse. They say, no, I'm sorry, but this is not actually in my client's best interest. So I have to make this decision, and I shall be having the authority to make this decision that I will not sell this product because this, I believe, is not appropriate. Or, they have to resolve it, by reporting this, to the higher management or something, right? And it can also, because if they do it, it can cause distrust between the client and, the service provider, and it can also cause regulatory damage as well, right? One of the very big issues in, legal issues in the UK in the recent years has been actually the mis-selling of insurance, this loan insurance product that almost all conventional banks sold in the UK as a bundle product. With any loan, they will sell an insurance as well. And then somebody one day, went to the court and they made a claim and they said, this has been mis-sold to me. The case went on, I think, for a couple of years, and finally, the court ruled in favor of the consumer. The bank was ordered by the court to repay the amount of money that was taken, plus all those years of, interest and, damages and whatnot and so on and so forth. So the claimant actually received a big amount of money. Now, my question to you is, what would happen next? Excellent. There was a rain. There was actually a flood, not a rain. There was a flood of those claims against every single bank in the UK because all of them were doing the same. As a result, the banks ended up paying billions of pounds, not millions, billions of pounds, because there were endless claims. To the point that they actually had to make provisions in their balance sheets because of these. These claims, they continued for years, and until now they are continuing. This is what happens when we do these things, and this is because somebody is actually trying to be smart and to invade this ethical space. Right? Okay. Sorry. I just want to ask Brother Ibrahim if he's in the hall. Yes, Brother Ibrahim, it's 5 to 5. You want me to continue with 2 case studies, or shall I hand over to Dr. Umar?
6 minutes, so if you can go through one of the case studies.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, we have 2 case studies here. So I will just go with the first one. So technically, because it was a workshop, I was expecting that we will be sitting in a different format. So I would probably ask you to form groups and do some brainstorming between the groups. But now we don't have that facility. So I will just go through the case study itself. So this is like a Mr. X is the head of retail banking at an Islamic bank which aims at becoming the leading bank of the country in terms of sale volumes as part of its 5-year organizational strategy plan. So to achieve this strategy, aggressive sales tactics were enforced, so that people were given high targets, sales targets. They were told, even if you have to promise things, just promise. And, whatever, tell them, yeah, there will be high return, there will be, for example, a simple case is that, if a deposit is based on mudarba, there is a risk of loss. Whether it happens or not, I'm not aware of any case of any bank returning a loss based on mudarba to its depositors, not to date. But technically, the risk is there. So instead of them making the statements clear to the depositors and explaining to them the nature of the deposit, they will say, yes, brother, 6% guaranteed, 10% guaranteed, whatever, no problem. Yallah, just sign up and so on and so forth. So I'm just shortening the case study here. What do you think is actually the problem here? So is it good because they want to be a bigger bank? They want to be the biggest bank in the country. They want to increase their customer portfolio. They want to increase the amount of deposits. And by applying these, tactics of, lying to people, promising things that are not true, and they know that it will actually never come true, or withholding information about the risks, so what risks are associated, with that, that type of product. Is it fair or unfair? Just give me one word answer. This is unfair. This is completely unfair because this is not what we are talking about here. This akhlaq, this, sidq, tawakkul, taqwa, all these attributes, they all point towards one thing, which is we have to be truthful. We have to be truthful to ourselves, to the others, because that is the only way of being truthful to Allah, our Lord. And if we do things, if we deceive other people, we are deceiving ourselves, and ultimately we are deceiving Allah. So let's not do that, right? And let's, have tawakkul. If we genuinely believe and strongly believe that Allah is the one and only provider and sustainer, then we should not worry about where the money will come from, whether there is a bonus, whether there is, a salary or not. Allah will provide. We just have to do the right thing, always. It's not doing once, it's actually all the time, right? Now I'm going to close the session. Thank you for your patience. It was probably a boring session after lunch and the end of the conference, but I think it was worth it, inshallah. What I would suggest is that you actually download, I'm giving you the link here, download the Code of Ethics for Islamic Finance Professionals from AAOIFI website. It's freely available. And then you adopt it. If you are in a position of decision-making in your business organization, right? Please try to adopt it at your business level. If that's not possible for whatever reason, I will encourage you to adopt it personally. Apply it on yourself as an individual, because in the end of the day, this code of ethics, as I explained, is for professionals, for individuals, not for institutions per se, okay? So we can do it voluntarily. So we have to, adopt it, and we can also, if it's an institutional adoption, then it shall be announced to the public as well, because it's better transparency. It gives more confidence. It will bring more consumer confidence into your organization and the products that you're offering, and also encourage others to adopt and also to announce, right? And with the with the end objective and goal of being a role model, inshallah. With that, I close the session and hand over the baton to Dr. Umar Oseni. Jazakallah khair for everything, and I hope that inshallah you have a good evening.
Thank you. Really, assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. I don't know what to say. He has said it all. He even went into the legal aspect. That was a great session. And I guess it's always very difficult to come back after lunch to have such a comprehensive kind of analysis. And again, as the chairman of my board, here, some of you may not know, he chairs the Governance and Ethics Board, as he said, and I'm a member of that board of AAOIFI. And we worked very closely together. I'm new on that board, and he has done a lot there. So when the chairman speaks, a member doesn't speak again. But again, I know we just have about 15 to 30 minutes to close the session, so I'm not going to repeat anything the chairman of the AAOIFI Governance Board said. Oh, I can see another member here. We have a few members of the AAOIFI Governance Board. Prof. Kabir Hassan is here as well. So basically, my role here is to kind of go into the legal cases. But again, I must sound this caveat here. There's a reputational risk. I'm not going to be here to show you the names of banks where they violated code of ethics. No, don't expect that from me. Do you know why? We don't wash our dirty linens outside. Yes, we've seen a number of violations, but I'm not going to stand here in front of you at a summit organized by AlBaraka Foundation, and we're all here and showing you the names of banks. So I have anonymized the case studies I'll be showing you. They are real cases, I have to tell you that. And for some of you who know about law and who can actually search cases, you can search on your own and find some of them. And you'll get the actual names. People have actually gone to jail, they've been put behind the bars just for violating ethics. But it depends on the level we're talking about. But again, it seems we are still a bit kind of sleepy. I'm also sleepy. I got my coffee here. But again, I can't ask you to go out there and grab your coffee. So the only thing I'm going to do is to tell you this. Now, when it comes to code of ethics generally, we talk about doing the right thing at the right time, in the right manner, as Brother Farrukh mentioned earlier. Again, I'm going to go back to the example of driving. You're driving and you get to the red light, or the red light is coming. You got the amber one coming, right? It's showing. It has turned from green to amber. What do you do? What do you do once you're driving, you're getting there, it's turning from green to amber? What do you do? No, please, let's be factual. I'll tell you what I do. Huh? You accelerate, yeah. That's why I said you run faster, earlier, yeah, basically. I'm not saying you should do this. This is the wrong thing to do. But naturally, that's what we do as human beings, Actually, it was a joke somewhere, they were asking someone, they said, okay, when you say green, what does it mean? Green? Go. Red? Amber? Run faster. Yeah, amber means run faster. Actually, that's a joke. Don't do that. Yeah, so I just wanted to start with that. And again, it's natural. It's part of us as human beings, We always want to, to beat the law, the rules. So I'm just going to walk you through very quickly. Most of the things I'll be discussing today have been discussed, actually. So I'm going to skip this, so don't worry. I'm not going to keep you for the next 1 hour, even though I was supposed to spend an hour. So I'm just going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes and leave. Now, all these have been defined. We all refer to the AAOIFI ethics code, so I'm not going to go into this. Recapping the history, I don't think you need that for now. The chairman of the AAOIFI Governance Board has told you to go and download the AAOIFI Code of Ethics. It's available online freely. Now, why do we have to discuss the legal implications? This is extremely important. We talk about personal kind of responsibility. If you see somebody doing wrong, you stop. These are personal things. Backbiting within the office, it's normal. Slander is normal. But when do you think this could lead to a civil or criminal liability? This is what we're talking about. This is beyond regulatory sanctions from your regulator. We're talking about situations where the whole thing will lead to criminal or civil liability. This is serious. So you wouldn't want to find yourself in such a situation. Now, let me start with one thing we have noticed, and we did a research many years ago relating to fatwa shopping. And this relates to transactions. Now, you could have some violations in the execution of the transaction. Now, I'm even taking a step backwards. During the structuring of the product itself, during the phase of product development, you could have some violations there. Have you ever seen this? Who has witnessed fatwa shopping here? You're in the industry, of course. You're going to witness that. Any other person? I saw some hands at the back. Seriously? You've seen it before? Not my paper on fatwa shopping. I'm talking about real case study where it happened in a bank. So I saw some hands up, and this is quite concerning. Now, this is even talking about while you're developing the product itself, not when you're executing the product. So we've got to be careful. And really, I'm sounding this kind of note of caution to finance professionals who work in banks. I'm a structurer. I've structured a lot of products, and don't worry. I mean, this is something we know. You have to ensure profitability. That's the target, as much as possible. Sharia compliance is important, but again, we'll leave that. Yeah, we'll take it to the Sharia committee to convince them. It's fine. And sometimes, oh, this is live, okay. Sometimes I'm trying to kind of control myself. I don't want to say certain things because it's live on YouTube. Yeah. Sometimes, we've seen situations where whenever the structuring team is preparing a product, you know what? They don't share all the documents with the Sharia committee. Who has witnessed this before? Where they withhold some documentation. These are key ethical issues. Because when we talk about mis-selling, we talk about slandering, most of these come, as part of the relationship or when you're selling a product, basically. But in developing the product itself, what do you see? Now, for me, these are major violations, and it was because of this, we had to work on this kind of fatwa shopping research. People were afraid of saying anything about it, but we had to look at the legal implications. That was one. The second fatwa shopping research we did many years ago, when I say many years, I mean 2013, 2015, we actually looked at the aspect of consumer protection. So you look at the breach of code of ethics, that leads to the violation of your ethical principles, and ultimately, you're abusing the rights of consumers who know nothing about Islamic finance, who are just Muslims, who want to do their things in accordance with Islam. So this is a fundamental thing we need to see as finance professionals. I don't know how many of you work in banks here. I know bonuses are everything, we always run after these. We want big bonuses at the end of the year. But ultimately, you can get 5 months, 6 months bonus, whatever, at the end of the year. And it can just go up the thin air. Haba and manthura. Just like, blown away. Why? Just one sickness or anything. It can happen. So that's why when we talk about the Baraka, we had this discussion in the morning. There was this panel session in the morning chaired by Sheikh Farrukh, where, discussing the issue of Baraka, when you give, how come your wealth reduces, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises you, La in shakartum, la azidannakum. If you're thankful by giving, Allah will increase it. Now, increasing actually can come in different ways, material or otherwise. So bonuses and all this, really, I don't really kind of care about this. You've got to be concerned about your values. And that's why here we're talking about the legal implications. So breaching, again, when there are major breaches, you have issues relating to operational risk, Sharia non-compliance, or reputational risk. We should be more concerned about the reputational risk for the whole industry. Financial risk is fine. You lose some money. Let it go. Counterparty risk is fine. Credit risk is fine. Okay, the person goes, default. But reputational risk actually will bring down the whole industry. That was what we nearly faced during the Dana gas debacle. But alhamdulillah, the courts actually saved us. I would say saved us because I come from a background where we were issuing sukuk at that time on a monthly basis when the market issued billions of dollars in an institution somewhere in the world. And suddenly you have this Dana gas case saying everything you have there is not valid. The purchase undertaking you have entered into are not valid. So it's going to affect the whole industry. The same thing, if there are multiple violations of ethical codes and these are escalated, it's going to affect all of us as an industry. So we've got to be concerned about this. So that's why we have to have this discussion. Now, legal implication, I'll just jump to, this is important. This is the question I would like to ask. I know you had this question earlier from my chairman. Now, I'm going to ask it in a different way. Here, bear in mind one thing, civil or criminal liability. Now, can you share any experience of a breach of code of ethics in any Islamic financial institution that led to civil or criminal liability? What I mean by civil is somebody sues the bank or yourself as a manager to the court. You are in court. Or somebody has to go behind the bar. To prison, that's what I mean behind the bar. I have to use these other terms, So, have you ever witnessed this? Anybody? Oh, really? Do you want to share? Sure. Please don't mention the name of the bank. Here.
Okay, so I don't know actually if this sue really happened, but I was expecting it at the end.
To sue you?
No, not suing me, but suing the bank.
Okay. I thought you talked about suing you. Okay.
No. Suing the bank. I don't know whether it really happened, but I was expecting it, and then I left the situation. But there was a situation in that bank where they made a product, and the product was a takaful product. But the way they discussed it for the customers, and customers are not well versed in financial terms and even the Islamic financial things. The way they marketed it to the people is that it's a kind of investment where you can get money out of it at the end of certain years of maturity.
Yeah.
So the people were putting their money on the basis of after a few years of maturity, they will get money. But then at the end of the day, it was not about maturity, it was takaful. Yeah, and the money is there. If there is a problem, you know what takaful is all about. It was not a real investment.
Absolutely.
And so like after 2 years and 3 years, you're putting the money. Every month they're putting money into this takaful, whatever you will call it, box. And the people then they discovered that this was not the case. The bank started to realize the issue. And they started to make some agreements of returning part of the money. Some customers accepted part of this money, but I don't believe that all the customers accepted it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. There are a lot of such cases are happening. Maybe some of you do not work in legal departments of banks. Some of us who are actually who interact with a lot of banks, we've seen a lot in the industry in the past few years. And again, this is why it's important for us to kind of ensure that we are not liable. Now, earlier on, we were discussing about damanat. These are torts, T-O-R-T. These are civil liability. You have what they call, in English law, you have what they call vicarious liability. If you're a manager, you can be liable for any action done by your staff in the department. So that's why sometimes you've got to report certain things. Vicarious liability, it's a subset of what they call strict liability. Strict liability is you don't need a proof, you're liable. Vicarious liability, okay, it's not you, someone else actually working under you, under your authority. So that's why it's always important to kind of ensure that not only you have a code of ethics, you can adopt, as the chairman said earlier, adopt the AAOIFI code of ethics, domesticate it, and teach your staff about it. Let them learn about it, basically. It's important. Now, let's look at one case. Don't ask me the country. I'm not going to tell you. Confidentiality is the hallmark of our job as lawyers, so I'm not going to tell you, even if you put, So now, there's a leading GCC Islamic bank versus some senior executives. For lawyers who can search properly, they will find this case with names. And I hope I didn't make any mistake to, sometimes you forget deleting something there, and you're going to reveal. Now, this is a case of misrepresentation of financial statements on ethical investment practices and conflict of interest. Now, you had a lot of those on conflict of interest earlier. You defined it. And this case actually involved very senior people. And it's not only one ethical breach. There are like 3 by this. And again, what we see, unfortunately, some of these breaches happen at the senior level. And the bank we're talking about is a very big bank, very popular. But I'm not going to say it. I'll keep it here till I die. Now, the executives actually were accused of prioritizing personal gain over the interest of the banks and customers. This is common. This, mind you, is not unique to this bank. We still see it, but it depends on the degree, ultimately. Now, there was civil liability, and to some extent, I think there was also criminal liability. Now, the unethical behavior and fraud at the bank actually resulted in significant civil liability for individuals involved, as well as the bank itself. So the bank, as a corporate entity, as you know, will be liable for any breach. So this is actually the concept of vicarious liability, ultimately, because you deal with a corporate entity, not individuals. Now, under the corporate law, when there is a problem with a company, you have an issue with a company, and it leads to fraud or any other thing, you know what you do sometimes? The English law allows you to lift the corporate veil. Now, once you lift the corporate veil, it identifies the senior executives who were involved. So then, as a litigant, you can sue the bank and sue those executives as well and make a claim. So civil liability often leads to big claims, money. You get big money. Just as it was discussed in the UK example, everybody started rushing. You had class action. There was a similar case in Canada also recently regarding some charges, where everybody started rushing to, to sue the banks, to make money. So it happens. So that's why we've got to be careful in terms of potential civil liability. And that's why you should have a very strong compliance, legal and compliance team. So again, this is part of, the monitoring process within a bank. Now, how to avoid misrepresentation? We're going to share this. You can read it. This is from AAOIFI. And again, it's based on the Code of Ethics of AAOIFI. I'm not going to go through it. Just it's there. Okay, sure. Sure. Get a mic.
Okay. Since you mentioned 2008, just let me tell you.
Don't mention the name if you know. I should have removed the year.
A long way. So I just want to share the experience so that you can see the context. Actually, these bankers never go to jail. That's the story I want to tell you. So in any country, in the United States, there is a relationship between median income of a household in a region and the house price. So 2008 financial crisis in the United States, the data was there. Data is showing this out of line. So everybody, whole ecosystem, starting from the academics like me, Nobel laureate, who built a model, those who are mortgage banker, the pusher, subprime lender, everybody was involved. So the problem started with Wall Street, then it went to the Main Street. It had a serious havoc in the United States economy and all over the world. You know the story.
Yep.
So the question is, the problem started 2008 and 9. Obama came in. So these people who created this problem, they were hired back in to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. At the end of the day, so when everything over, so they were sued against few bankers. There were two eventually won their litigation, but they were rescued by another group of lawyers. So lawyers are very much involved from the problem itself and solving the problem, creating the problem.
Absolutely.
That's number one.
Yep.
Number two, yes, the borrowers, those who make mistake, they cannot pay default, they go to jail. But who are those borrowers? The small borrowers. Give me an example from Bangladesh. The whole banking industry is in disarray right now. Millions of dollars are being disappropriated by the bank owners, but the agricultural loan that is given to the agriculture for small amount of loan, not paying on time, they are ending up in jail.
Yep.
Again, the failure of regulation, also the lawyers, so ethics, the one that Farrukh Raza was actually, this is what we have done in our previous term.
Absolutely.
And this is really Islam, honesty, and these values and ethics are very important.
Sure.
The question is, we know all of these things, but do we really follow it?
True.
I just want to share
Thank you so much, Prof. Kabir Hassan. Now you've heard from the 3 members of AAOIFI Governance Board in the room here. So, you see, I can imagine if you actually see the level of debate that goes on within the room whenever we're coming up with standards under the leadership of Farrukh, it's always intense. We spend so much time, people dedicate their time from all over the world, trying to come up with this for the best interest of the industry itself. Now, I put the name here because it's been wound up. It's no longer in existence. So, yes. Sorry, no, I don't do that. Yeah, no Pakistani, no. So, this one I put up the name because it's known to everybody and it's no longer in existence. So, it was actually a case of fraud, corruption, money laundering itself. You know what? Some of these kind of reputational risks caused by these kind of cases have affected, some of the banks. People always think, when you say Islamic bank in the Western world in some country, they say, we know of so-so bank, Bank of Credit and Commerce. Islamic bank is Hawala. They even believe Hawala actually is used to fund terrorism. This is wrong, completely wrong. If anybody's hearing me from anywhere in the world today, Hawala, it's actually a standard mode of financing in Sharia. it doesn't actually, it's not tantamount to money laundering or terrorism. Let everybody hear it from east to west. I know this is live. It's not actually, so we have to, when you see a lot of writings on Wikipedia and all this is what you see. Kiwala and, terrorism and all this. I say, who writes all this? So, but again, all this came from some of this reputational risk we're talking about. Some things our own brothers have done in the past. This was a conventional bank originally, but they actually had an Islamic window. And they were involved in a lot of sharp practices, money laundering, fraudulent practices, again, falsifying financial statements. In fact, there is a country in Southeast Asia, I'm not going to give the name because it's very sensitive. A few years ago, there was falsification of the financial statements in collusion with a particular top 4 auditors in the world, all these big fours. They manipulated the financial statements, and this is a religious-related entity. Very big. You can't discuss the history of Islamic finance without mentioning the name. So all these things happen, but again, some of these are not really public, and that's why we cannot give these details. Most of the things you see is falsifying financial statements. So these are critical ethical issues we should avoid. Now, how to avoid bribery? Again, you've had a lot of discussions in the morning from Sheikh Raza, so you can actually go through this in your own later. Now, insider trading case. This actually is hypothetical. This is not real. Because I was trying to check the law reports to see whether we can find any that relates to Islamic finance. I couldn't get any at that time. So again, when you have Bank ABC, largest bank in the world, operates according to Islamic principles and provide a lot of services, what is the scenario here? An executive within the bank obtains confidential information that you're going to know about a potential kind of merger, and you know what it means when you're having a potential merger. So you quickly kind of inform your friends to buy. Again, this is wrong. So again, you've been walked through the process earlier by Sheikh Farrukh relating to how to determine whether you are conflicted, whether you're sitting on a board or you are actually involved in a transaction. So you can always go through that. Again, I will repeat, violation of code of ethics is not only something maybe leads to termination, it could lead to potential civil or criminal liability. How to identify it, again, you can go through, it's in AAOIFI, this is from AAOIFI as well. Conflict of interest, this is a real case, actually. And this is a bank in a GCC, a very prominent bank as well. And again, this was a case involving a dispute between the employer bank and the employee. The employer actually had some information about the employees' kind of other businesses, with third parties. But again, they didn't take any action. But the employee was terminated based on certain things he did, relating to that, the business. And they found themselves in the court, and the court ultimately dismissed the employee's claim, finding that the bank had taken reasonable steps to manage conflict of interest. This is something very important. So if there's conflict of interest, the steps you take matters. As Sheikh Farrukh mentioned earlier, you've got to document some of the steps. If you're sitting on a board and they're discussing a proposal from you, what do? Okay, I'm withdrawing from this. I don't want to be involved in the decision making. I want it recorded. Tell them to put it in writing, because that will protect you in future in case anybody raises any concern. So the steps you take, even though there's a conflict of interest, actually matters. Many of you here are very senior people. You might be sitting on boards of banks. You've got to be careful. When you're pulling out, don't just pull out, I'm leaving the room. No. Tell them to put it in writing in the minutes and record it, that you were not involved in the decision making. Why? Put the decision so that nobody goes against you in future. So in this case, yes, the court actually agreed with the bank that they took steps. They documented everything, and that was it. How to avoid it, again, I think you've seen this earlier. You can walk through it also, through going through the AAOIFI standards code of ethics. Now, Miss Selly's scandal, this is real. Actually, this is a real case as well. Again, you can read this up. I don't want to kind of waste so much time today on some of this. The message I'm going to pass today, it's more of, if you violate the code of ethics, you could have potential criminal or civil liability, not only just termination or kind of reprimand from your employer. Now, in conclusion, The legal implications of breaching the code of ethics for Islamic finance practitioners are significant and far-reaching. These are things you need to know. You have the personal liability and you have that obligation also to the whole industry. Always think of the wider implication of what you're doing. What you're doing here means a reputational implication, reputational risk to the whole industry. Whatever you do could affect all of us. So let's actually be careful in terms of what we do. Now, misconduct, again, unethical behavior, all these we've identified also could lead to financial loss. You know, when we talk about civil liability, your bank is going to pay millions of dollars, as you heard earlier. So financial losses as well, apart from the reputational risks. And also adhering to kind of some of these standards, I think is something you have to do. And also ensure that while you're trying to be competitive, there's no harm in making bonuses, big bonuses in banks. No, it's okay, make your money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, "La tansa nasibaka min ad-dunya." But waqsin kama ahsana Allahu ilayk. When you make big bonuses, you have to pay your zakat as much as possible. So but you can make your money, but how do you make the money matters a lot. So this is something we should actually be concerned about, and we should always think big, think of the industry itself rather than thinking individual. Thank you so much, and we'll be happy to take more questions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I've been told we're going to take a few questions, and we're going to call it a day, not even a day. I'm going to close the whole conference. You're going to come later. Okay. Questions, please? Yes, please. Someone at the back. Advice on what?
One piece of general advice that would summarize many of the gained experience you have seen of the different breaches of these ethics and the different cases, what would that be?
Stick to the rules. That's it. Stick to the rules. Sheikh Raza mentioned this earlier in terms of the code of ethics. Download it as he has advised. Study it, because this particular code of ethics from AAOIFI is for Islamic Finance Professionals. As he said, we're coming up with a different one for the Islamic Financial Institutions themselves, basically, the corporate entities. So these are two different. So download it, read about it, learn more about it, and apply it in your normal professional life. And I think that will help a lot.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's take two more before we go. Okay, sir. Sheikh Fadil. Someone here.
السلام عليكم الدكتور محمد بشير حداد بارك الله فيكم.
وعليكم السلام وبركاته. أهلا.
والسلام. أنا أستحضر الآن الشيخ صالح كامل رحمة الله عليه.
نعم.
في السنوات الأخيرة ونقده الذاتي لأخطاء وعثرات التجربة في المصارف الإسلامية واستنهاضه الهمم لأن تصوب المسيرة. وهذا لو أتصور الآن لو الشيخ صالح معنا في هذه الجلسة سيكون في غاية السرور رحمة الله عليه. السؤال ومن تداعيات أفكار عديدة جدا، متى تتحول هذه المعايير الأخلاقية أو أخلاقيات مهنة الصرافة الإسلامية أو التمويل الإسلامي إلى مقرر دراسي أولا في أقسام الاقتصاد الإسلامي في الجامعات؟ هذه مسؤولياتكم أن تضعوها أمامهم لتكون مقررا. والأمر الثاني أن تقدم فيها كورسات لكل موظفي البنوك الإسلامية. ابدأوا ببنك واحد، لتبدأ التجربة في بنك واحد في دولة واحدة، ثم تجرى دراسات وتكون نتائج إيجابية إن شاء الله وتعمم على المصارف الأخرى. مشكلتنا في الرأسمال البشري في المصارف الإسلامية أنهم في واد، والمصرفية الإسلامية في واد، وأخلاقياتها في واد، مما وأشد على يدك فيما قلت، مما يضر بالإسلام وبالصناعة المالية الإسلامية ويدفع الكثيرين إلى الاعتقاد بفشلها. وسأفشي سرا، أنا بعض المشايخ الذين أصدروا أحكام أنه لم يعد هناك فرق، ليس هناك فرق بين اقتصاد مصرف إسلامي وغيره، كان سببها أخلاقيات بعض الموظفين في التعامل معهم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Excellent, very good. Well, I'm not going to comment much on this because I'm not going to speak more about, the practices, you have in the decision-making process, basically among the Sharia scholars. But it's a valid observation in terms of, okay, the first thing, let me just, first things first. We talked about, having a code of ethics within the bank and getting everybody to consent with it. I mean, this is actually normal. It's normal. But again, when it comes to code of ethics, we personally, I was a general counsel of an institution previously. We wouldn't actually get them to sign. Basically, we have to train them like this, teach them about it, rather than getting them. It's not actually, code of ethics is a bit different from your contract. It's different from your employment contract. Contract or staff regulations is different. Ethical practices actually, are not contractual things. They are things you need to learn as part of your professional obligations, like accountants, basically. And I think something comes to my mind now. I think even for Sharia scholars, if you look at the Islamic Financial Services Act 2013 of Malaysia, they have put some kind of responsibilities on the shoulders of Sharia scholars. They can be criminally liable as well. So this is something, again, I think perhaps we may want to look into it going forward. They can be criminally liable, in some of these institutions here. You want to say something? Yeah. You don't have this? Okay.
Thank you, Ya Sheikh, for raising a very important point. So I just wanted to inform the audience here that given the criticality of the Sharia-related decisions within financial institutions, we are actually in the process of issuing a new standard that is called Sharia Decision-Making Standard, right? This is primarily not only for Sharia scholars, but those charged with governance, so including the board of directors, including the senior management as well of the financial institutions. It just happened that me and Dr. Umar and Dr. Professor Kabir, just 2 days ago, we actually finalized the draft of this new standard. Wow. It has taken us more than 2 years, actually, 2 years and endless meetings of the working group and public consultations, public hearings, etc., to make sure that we get it right. It's a very detailed, standard where we have given a number of scenarios, again, real cases, real life cases where, the decisions made by, those charged with governance, including the Sharia scholars, were, difficult. And the purpose of this standard is actually to enable them to make the right decisions in the right way, in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah. So this is what will be happening soon. And inshallah, I think within maybe a matter of 6 to 8 weeks, it will be publicly announced. So the standard is actually being issued, inshallah.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair. Yeah, thank you so much. The chairman is the only person who has the right to tell the public that this is the time we are going to issue the standard. I cannot say that, so thank you for that. Okay, now, basically, this brings me to the end of the session, and I guess this is the end of the AlBaraka Summit, Istanbul, Turkey, 2024. And inshallah, we look forward to meeting you again. But before then, there's something on the screen. Kindly scan the QR code you have there to get your workshop certificate. And I've been told by the organizers that you'll be getting it by email here, inshallah, very soon. So please scan it and you'll get your certificates. Thank you very much for your attendance and thank you for your patience. I know it's quite late now. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.